All right, happy holidays, everyone. Welcome all into this very impromptu, very spur of the moment stream. Holidays here in Canada. Sometimes the Canadians celebrate the Christmas, the dinner on the 24th. Some celebrate it on the 25th. Some even celebrate it on Boxing Day tomorrow on the 26th. My family celebrated it yesterday, so all of the food and the presents and all that has been kind of wrapped up, no pun intended, and we are kind of finished the holiday festivities. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to come on and kind of tie up a few loose ends about some of the things that have been going on the last week, including the inaugural community-driven draft that is taking place on Tuesday. And here to analyze a little bit with me the draft, and also to help me put together the Sporer pop-up cap tournament team, Warbot back here. How you doing? How was your day, Warbot?
Yeah, thanks for having me. Hopefully everyone's having a Merry Christmas wherever in the world you are.
Yeah, and of course, for those that don't know, I'm in Canada. Warbot currently is working off in Denmark, so it's a little bit of a distance, a little bit of a flight if we were to have to, be in the same room and stream. So the wonder of technology allows us to do that. So Warbot, let me start off by asking you, it's been 24 hours now since you guys went through and you did your draft that we did on stream here. How are you feeling overall about your draft, your picks?
Well, I think it was a draft where everyone kind of reached up and got the players they liked. So I like all the players I got, except Jeff Francoeur.
Did you get him on the card shop? Did you get a copy?
Yes, I have all the cards I need. So I do now own Francoeur. I did have to go buy an Ohtani, which was a mistake because it turns out I actually might need the points this week.
Oh,
But these things happen. But
well, maybe
yeah.
maybe you'll get lucky in one of these pop-up tournaments and you win an all-perfect pack, which you can net you quite a few points depending on the cards that are in there. Have you done well in the pop-ups that have finished already this week?
So I didn't play the drafts because I think I just missed the sign up and those went pretty quickly. Did okay in the pop-ups that fired, I guess. But it's been a kind of funny format for some of these, and I think you'll see that for kind of the one we try also, where it feels like most of the teams are actually going to end up being kind of the same.
Yeah,
So like the
exactly.
Iron one I was in, most of the teams that got past the first 2 or 3 rounds probably had like 24 players in common, and I won a few coin flips, and then I eventually lost one of the coin flips, and that's kind of what happens.
Yeah, that's what happens, and that's why I asked you to come on to help me with that, because it's any card is available to use, I believe, in this one here, but it's a very low cap of, I think, a 56 average. I think it is. We'll take a look at it a little bit, but I want to start off going back to that invitational because I just find it fascinating. I find it really fun that members of our community can get together, and OOTP is willing to use the devs to put a tournament on their game that allows you guys to compete against each other in this draft format. So what we're going to do is I'm going to have Charles just kind of quickly maybe evaluate the 8 different teams. And today and tomorrow, I'm going to put out a Google form with a 10-pack giveaway. And Charles, no, you cannot enter because you are part of the tournament. So you are forbidden to enter. You can enter in spirit. And we're going to give away 10 packs to those of you that are willing or able to correctly guess, predict the forecast, the winner of the tournament. You'll have the 8 different choices here. Let me zoom in a little bit. So these are the 8 different combatants, and it's survivor style. So because there's going to be more than one person that gets the first question right, then you have to guess who's going to finish second in the tournament of the 8 teams. Who will finish third?
You actually gave them kidneys as an option for first place?
Well, you know what? In the random generation of this game, you just never know what could happen. You just never know.
True.
And notice he's listed at the bottom.
Okay, all right,
So
that's fair.
it's like when you go into the supermarket, you know, they put all the high profile items at eye level, and all the
Yep.
stuff that, you know, you probably don't want to sell or they don't care about selling at the bottom. That's kind of what this is. We've got second place, we got third place, and I'm determining third place team, the team that loses to the eventual winner in the semifinals. I'm going to label them as the third place team. And the fourth place team is the team that obviously loses to the finalist loser, the runner up. And then we have one tiebreaker. The final will go how many games? Will it be a sweep in 4, or will it go the distance in 7, or somewhere in between? So I will post this form a little bit later once we kind of show you the 8 different rosters. If you did tune in yesterday, you would have saw the full roster sheet as we were drafting. But today we're going to go through with a fine-tooth comb and look at each of the rosters very quickly. I do plan on rating into DishNet. He is going to be streaming at 7 p.m. Eastern, last I heard. So we're only going to go about an hour. We want to go through the Invitational and then go ahead and do the cap tournament. I was going to do a bounty, but I don't think we have enough people here. It being Christmas Day, people are having Christmas dinner, or they're tuned into the official channel to get their drop. So we'll leave the bounty till tomorrow. What do you think? Pros and cons. Give me a couple for Team Aster 31. What do you like about his team? And before you do, Charles, a reminder that this is set in the 1980s, so it's the defensive era.
Yes.
1987 run environment, and the DH is on, and these are all best of 7 played at the 1978 Royal Stadium. So right here at the bottom, you can see that. And when you're making your guesses, you can see the run environment factors at the in the header. All right, Team Aster.
I'm trying to
Give
find
us your
it.
best
It was
Don
funny.
Cherry
It was funny
analysis.
because there were, yeah. So this is good. I get to put myself out there, explain all the reasons my team's going to win, and then we're going to lose to like kidneys in the first round or something.
Exactly. Yeah.
Let's see. I really like Oscar with the first pick. I mean, that's just a huge card, right? I think there are a few cards in here that I didn't actually have as playable at all. And so it's interesting that Astor and I evaluated them differently. Like that Brendan Ryan, for example, I would have thought was completely unplayable in the era, but he actually thinks is kind of just really good defensive value there. Because I'm guessing that might be a starting second baseman, right? So that's actually a pretty significant investment, in a card there.
Yeah, when I was looking at this team, and just to address GT Sundown, unfortunately, we will not know the brackets until it fires off or shortly before that. So everyone's going to be in the same position here, where you just have the 8 teams, the 8 raw teams, and you have to kind of predict without the bracket. So no one will get an advantage. I'll make sure that the forum is shut off before brackets are shown. It's about 22 hours before it fires off. We can't see anything in that game except the 8 combatants. And Warbot, I think you can say that the lineups aren't set yet, correct? Or the matchups. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. We're not going to know till it fires who the matchups are.
Okay. Yeah, I noticed that too. Astor without a true second baseman. I don't know if John Beckwith can play second. I'm not familiar with that card. He's going with 12 pitchers, 14 batters, which I guess, is kind of traditional. I do like, top end, of course, with DeGrom, with Charleston, with McGraw, for this time period. But like you, I'm kind of worried about after DeGrom, pitching wise, and then that second base position.
Well, McGraw is another one where, again, I think this is, I can always claim I'm right, but my evaluation is much different than his, is really what that means. Astor all the players we're playing against, okay, everyone except Kidneys that we're playing against has had a lot of success, playing a lot of different tournament formats.
Right.
So, the fact that Aster and I evaluate things differently, I'd like to think I end up being right on it, but what I can really say is we evaluate them differently.
Yeah.
But the comparison that I might have given, with a card like McGraw would be, let me see if there's a good way to compare him with the low diamonds that I picked. I ended up picking Kevin Mitchell and Spencer Steer. And even though McGraw has more eye than both of those cards, they're both sort of, I feel like, just going to give you a lot more bat. And so that was kind of my thinking. And I think Aster's take was, look, McGraw has 125 eye both ways. This is a hard era to score, and he's just going to get on base a ton.
Right. And again, that's what I love about this tournament is we have 8 managers with different models, different strategies, and they're all successful, except Kidneys. But hey, Kidneys is drafting for Snail Man and
Who's going to be
using
really good,
Snail.
yeah.
Yeah. Who is going to do the
Um,
settings and the sliders and all that. So Kidneys picked the players and Snail Man's going to direct the tournament. Yeah, it's just great to see 8 different managers with different strategies going head to head like
yeah.
this.
But it's funny. I mean, because I think there were about 5 picks because Aster and I were picking right next to each other. There were about 5 picks where he kind of stole the pick right before I was going to take it. And then there were probably another 5 picks that he made that were just not even remotely on my draft board. And so
Yeah.
it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
And one thing too, for those that don't know, Aster was kind of at a big disadvantage because he jumped in to replace a manager like hours before the draft. So he didn't have that mental preparation and the preparation ahead of time to work on a draft board. He kind of stepped in the last moment, and he will take that first overall pick, Oscar Charleston, and we'll see how far it takes him. Okay. Dallas Skyliners. Dallas Skyliners, again, another successful manager, does well in league play and tournaments. I remember him a lot from OOTP23. What can you say about the roster here? Here, 11 pitchers compared to 12. So,
Yeah, I think the 11's fine. This is one where he did some things that so there's some things he did that I think he got really good value for. Um, like that Neil Robinson, it feels like that was high, but that's just an incredibly good low diamond card. I mean, low gold card, and you're getting a lot of value over. Because the way you're drafting is you're thinking about what's the most value over, what's say the low gold that I would get a bit later. So I think there are a few cards here that just seem like really good picks where he got them. Goodrum's a really good pick. Cecil Fielder, if you hit some lefties, should be really good value. The big thing, there are 2 big things that he did that are very different than the way I had evaluated it. The big one is he picked 2-way players, both in perfect and in high diamond. And I actually, it's funny because I ended up taking Ohtani very late in the draft. That was not my plan coming in. That was, a bit of a reaction to kind of having missed on some other players the way I thought I was going to build the team. The problem with the 2-way players right now is that they're a fair bit behind. So like with Monty Ward, what you're getting is at this point probably, a low diamond middle infielder and a low diamond starting pitcher. And the question is, and that's something to think about if you have, like a normal perfect draft also, right? Would you trade one of your perfect picks for 2 low diamonds? Well, it depends how deep the roster is. Here, probably your 15th or 16th player, like we're going to think about that when we build cap rosters, right? Your 15th or 16th player is, probably somewhere in the bronzes. So there is a pretty good upgrade. Monty Ward is a much better middle infielder than your bronze middle infielders. And he's a much better starting pitcher than your bronze starting pitchers. So I'm guessing he's not going to get enough value for Monty Ward and Cal McVeigh, and I'm guessing that he would have done better to run, at least one of those as a one-way player. But I'm not sure that's true.
Yeah.
And I think that's the big decision he made that was different. And it was clear from the fact that he took them early that he felt that was an important part of the strategy here.
Right.
The other thing is just, go ahead. Yeah.
I was just going to mention, for those people that didn't see the draft, the numbers you see on the right-hand side are the rounds that the players were taking in. So that's why they kind of go out of order. So for instance, that Neil Robinson card was taken in the 5th round by Dallas. So just in case you're wondering, and of course the green highlighting the pitchers, very top end on the pitchers. Of course, Monty Ward's going to have to be a shortstop because the only other shortstop listed here is Cliff Pennington.
I guess Alfonso could play short, but you really only want to play him there versus lefties if you can get away with it.
Right. Who on the list? We forgot to do it for Astor, but let's have the Charles possible underdog pick here. So let's go back to Astor. Who would might be the underdog value pick?
I love what he did with Tremel Sledge and Shane Halter, because if you just basically glue those two picks together, you have like a gold bat.
Okay.
And it's nice. And one of the nice things about running in an earlier era is you can't run openers. So you will actually be able to run the lineup you want to.
Right. No openers. How about the value pick for Dallas?
Let's see. I know it looks like he took him early, but I think the Neil Robinson still might be really good. Newt Barr is also great, but honestly, this draft is going to like rise or fall based on whether Monty Ward and Cal McVeigh are worth it as two-way players. So either they're his best picks or his worst picks. We're going to find out.
All right, moving on to the aforementioned kidneys. Kidneys went early with some lower level players. In fact, his 1st round pick was a iron, and his 2nd round pick was a bronze. So he went after some of these meta lower level players. What do you have to say about the Kidney Snail Man roster?
I have so many things to say about that roster.
What positive things do you have to say about the roster?
He's got 26 players on it.
11 pitchers. Do you see any value there? Do you see a pick that goes, Kidneys did well with that one?
So there were some things I liked. I liked that I got to draft against him. No, okay, look. No, Ozzy I do think is really good value. I think Friedel's a card that probably would have gone pretty soon. I like the idea of kind of going and getting the cards you want. Here's the problem I have with Mondesi. So the way you think about any draft is kind of what's the value you're getting over the replacement you would get if somebody else picks the card you want and you have to come back and do it later. The problem I have is that I don't think Mondesi is like, maybe, I guess on this roster, maybe you'll find a way to do it, but it's not clear that Mondesi is a starter for him. It feels like Mondesi is a backup who's going to be the best middle infield backup by an enormous margin. Mondesi is basically a silver card pretending to be an iron. He's as good as like Dave Kingman was on release or something. So he's an excellent card. But if he's your backup, what you're still doing is you're putting those resources into somebody that's only playing about half the time if he's your backup middle infielder.
Is he second base eligible?
Yeah. In fact, he's probably even better defensively at second, but he's also a little bit splitty here. Actually, I can put the card up for you if you want.
Sure. Lord Christic, I don't think the servers are down. Charles is going to test that. Someone's asking in the chat if the
I'm able to connect now, so maybe it's a local thing. But I'm also in Europe, so it may be a different, route or something like that. So here's Mondesi. So you're getting excellent defense at second and short. You're getting excellent base running, so you have value off the bench. Normally I hate a bat with no eye, as you know, but really the way I'm thinking about it is I want the card to get on base. So if you hit, you can get on base with a single, you can get on base with a walk. Normally I'm happy to get on base with walks because it feels more reliable, but if you hit enough singles and, this card's going to hit a ton of singles and a ton of doubles, he's still getting on base. So this is a great iron card, but it's also a bit splitty. So I don't love running this card at all against lefties, for example. I think you're losing too much of the bat. So I think this is the best iron card you can pick, probably. But you have to feel like this is an upgrade over your starting second baseman or your starting shortstop to want to run him. And I think, well, once you're picking Ozzy at shortstop, you're only thinking of this as your starting second baseman, basically.
Yeah.
So I just felt like the value wasn't quite there, but it is the case that by picking that way, he got the very best iron card that I think probably all 8 of us would have rated as the best iron card.
Yeah. I think he, in my opinion, not as an expert at all, but, taking those 2 shortstop primarily back to back in the first 2 picks, one or the other, I could see. But then you got Daniel Murphy, who was taken in the 8th round. So there goes your second base slot, likely. Like you said,
Yeah,
Mondesi's
I'm guessing he's going to put Murphy at first and start Mondesi. That's my guess.
Oh,
Is
okay.
what he's going to try to do. But yeah, it's just a question of value. I would have done it a little differently. But there's some good picks here too. And actually, the Addy Joss pick that he made when he did it really messed up my plan for the draft. That's why I ended up taking Ohtani, was because I thought I was just going to end up getting Joss without having to race for him. There's one other thing he did where I just think so. I think the ordering is actually interesting for people that are trying to look at the meta, right? Because one of it is which cards went at all, and that's kind of telling you who are the best meta cards. But the other is something about the relative value. And to me, the big strategic thing I would have done differently in this draft was where he took Fernandez and Schmidt in rounds 3 and 4, kind of back to back. And the reason I think that was a mistake is right now there are some places where if you look at the meta for a particular level, there's a big gap between the best card and the next best card, right? So for example, in low diamond, Sonny Gray is much better than any other low diamond starter. So if you want a low diamond starter at all, it's worth using a high pick to get Sonny Gray. But actually the high diamond meta right now is really, pretty vibrant. We've had a lot of good high diamond cards released in the last few weeks. So just to, to throw some names out there, actually what I should do, I can throw names out there for the specific park. Maybe that's even the easier way to do it.
Right. Yeah. Again, 1978 Kansas City is the park that these guys are playing in.
Yeah. Let me do that. But I mean, just as an example, like with some names that, you're going to see in these high diamond tournaments, so we're going to see certainly those 2. There's the Scooble that just came out, Eflin, Webb, Castillo from the PT Elite, Corbin Burns, Jim Palmer, Orel Hershiser. And all of these are cards that are seeing significant playing time. And all of these are cards that probably grade out pretty close to each other. And my model wants to add Cliff Lee to that mix, but other models don't.
Right.
But the thing is, if you have 8 cards that are pretty close to each other, then what I thought the right strategy to do is if there are 8 good low diamond starting pitchers, why don't I wait and be the last one to take one of those 8 and go
Right.
take, so I would rather have taken, I think if he took Sonny Gray instead of Justin Steele, and then downgraded one of Fernandez and Schmidt to, one of the high diamond starters available later, I think it would have been overall a little bit better. So that was the one strategically I would do differently.
For a value pick, on Kidney's team, you talked about a few players here. Do you like, are you surprised that, one of the best best third baseman against righties was still available in the 9th round, or not really? Because third base seems like
that I think is really good value as well.
Yeah.
You know, Brett was high on my board, except that I ended up getting Kevin Mitchell in the low diamond round, which meant that was going to be my third base plan.
Your ears were ringing, kidneys. Look who's in the chat as we break down all the different teams here battling it out in tomorrow's invitational. And if you missed the stream, it was a great stream. It went pretty smooth. It's on my VOD. You can check out each pick by pick and the trash talking that went on and oh, you stole my pick and all that kind of stuff. And kidneys, played a little prank on me that I didn't notice until someone else pointed it out. And I
Oh, that
won't
was
spoil
nice.
it
Yeah.
for you. I won't spoil it, but yeah, that was pretty good, kid. That was pretty good. All right, let's go on and talk about your compatriot on the Warbot stream on Fridays. Is Adolfo always a contender? One of the 8 combatants. Break down his team in this tournament.
I mean, I don't want to play him for a few reasons, but partly because we both kind of had talked about the draft board, and so a lot of the cards he liked are also cards I really liked. Getting Doc Gooden where he did, I mean, you're getting the best pitcher eligible in the draft in the 11th round. That can't be bad, right? That was the other thing that kind of pushed me a different direction. Was I was going to finally just take Doc. I sort of backed into the Otani thing because I lost Doc to Isadafo, and then I lost Addy Joss to kidneys, and then so they're we've talked about these cards a lot. So as you might imagine, there are a lot of cards I really like here. A few of them that I think are. Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, no, just give us because we want to get on to the cap draft here, but give us the value picks, that maybe 1 or 2 that use really, really solid picks.
I think getting Geloff where he did is really good. Brendan Doyle is just an incredible 3-position defensive outfielder that he's getting essentially for free at the end of the draft. The other thing I like, we were just talking about you're going to be able to get a really good high diamond starter for free. He basically got Jim Palmer in the last round without having to use any effort to get him. And I think that meant he got a lot more value than drafting, a very slightly better starter earlier. So yeah, I really like this draft. This is one I am hoping I don't face in the first round.
What do you think about his catchers, Wilson and Mathis as a combo?
I think I've got Wilson as the best silver catcher, but only by a little bit because there are a few other good options. Mathis is probably the best iron catcher, but maybe in this era, the catcher ability doesn't help quite as much as modern. So I had Mathis a little lower on my board than he did, I guess.
Next up, joining us from southern Germany yesterday was Hamlet. And Hamlet, you may see in the Discord once in a while. You always see his teams at the competitive level. And he drafted right before kidneys at the number 7 position. And his first overall pick was Nolan Jones. So break down Hamlet's team. He kind of drafted, he kind of almost went in order, saving all his low round picks until later on.
This is a really interesting team because Nolan Jones was one of the players at the top of my draft board that I thought I liked more than everybody else. And it turns out I was wrong. I didn't like him as much as Hamlet did. But I really, really like that card, and I definitely would have taken him before it got back to Hamlet. The funny thing is, there are also so this is, I think, the draft that if you just ask how long it's been since these cards were released, this is definitely the draft that is the oldest in terms of when the cards came out. Cards like Boom Boom Beck, Benji Molina, Jeff Blauser, the Kenley Jansen, even Dave Malarker, have been out for quite a while. And so that'll be interesting because normally the way a power curve goes up, you always want the newest of everything. And Hamlet's strategy seemed to be to kind of pick the really well-established cards that kind of are well-modeled, and he really has a good understanding of what they're going to do, and he knows exactly how good they are. And it'll be interesting to kind of see if that works out.
How about a value pick? Maybe someone he got later on in the draft that you thought might have gone earlier?
Well, so one is, let's see, one is that we're talking about these catchers, and Benji Molina is either going to be the best pick he made or completely useless. And it entirely depends on the draw, because, Benji Molina, I can put the card up. Benji Molina is an incredible pick for that level if you're facing lefties. And if you face a rotation, with 5 righties, you barely want him on your roster. So that one's going to be an interesting make or break pick, I think.
All right, moving on to McNoosh. McNoosh, again, one of the combatants tomorrow. Again, this will fire off at around 3 p.m. Eastern. The Sporer is going to broadcast it, kind of a red zone coverage on his channel tomorrow after I stream. So again, if you want to see how this plays out. Also, again, after we go through all the teams, I will post the entry form that you can enter in to try to win 10 standard packs. And Warbot and I will announce the winner on our Thursday Hawk Report. All right, back to the McNoosh picks. He went with Willie Mays. Can't really blame him. First pick overall, or first pick for him, followed up by Kershaw. What do you think about this roster?
All right, so he drafted almost top to bottom, which was different than I think almost all the rest of us. And he got a lot of really good value picks. I mean, Willie Mays could easily have just been the top pick in the draft. I think Astor debated Willie Mays as a top pick. I had Mays a little bit ahead of Aaron, who I picked at number 2, but I decided that being able to play 3 positions and getting that flexibility was maybe worth a tiny downgrade. But it just meant he got possibly the best player in the draft at number 1. He got, possibly the best pitcher in the draft. If you want a lefty, this is your lefty at number 2. I'm really frustrated he took Grandal from me. If I had any idea Grandal would go that early, I would have taken him earlier than that.
Was Carlton a reach at number 3?
That depends. In Modern, Carlton maybe is just a lot better than kind of all of your other silver options. My model kind of says that Carlton's not going to be as good between the combination of this park and playing up against some better bats. In which case it would be a reach. But if he's as good as he is in Modern, then I think that's a good pick there.
Okay. And any value pick that you see as a really good later round pick?
Yeah, I love what he did in a lot of the late rounds. I think Tartable is just an excellent low silver and may end up being just incredibly useful as a DH. Rosenthal's an excellent center fielder. Pelayo Chacon was high on my draft board. I think Osmus is really good value for kind of where he got, a backup catcher there. Even, Chas McCormick. There's just a lot of really good. There are a lot of really good value picks. My main hope against this team is my pitching model seems to be pretty different from his. And so I'm hoping that it will turn out that he didn't quite hit the era with the pitching. Because if he did, he got so many good value hitters that we're going to be in trouble.
Right. All right. A couple teams left to look at here. And Sporer only ended up with 10 pitchers. I don't know if any of his hitters here are two-way. I guess Tippy Martinez, they miscolored him. He should be a
He's
pitcher.
A pitcher, yeah.
Yeah. So he should have.
I think you can get away with 10 in this era. I was thinking I might run 10 of the 11 essentially, and kind of pulling one depending on who I face.
All right. Well, Sporer is one of these players that, when you play sports, one of the awards is the most improved player. And Sporer, who's done a lot of franchise, I've noticed watching him over the last couple months, he's really improving on his tournament play. He's really becoming a little bit more competitive. And I'm wondering what you think about his draft?
Yeah, there are a lot of things I like in this draft. A-Rod, again, really good. Also, could easily have gone first, and you got him fourth. I think if you were, I actually like Skubal better than Hershiser, even though he took Skubal later. I think the one, of those like cluster of high diamond pitchers that are all sort of the same, I think Skubal is, at least for being a lefty, differentiates himself a little bit. Um, One other decision that he clearly made was to go with very flexible players. Jackie Jensen, Harry Ford, Tony Phillips, Wes Parker a little bit, Dink. These are all players that play a lot of positions and make roster construction really easy. So that meant in the later rounds, he could just focus on taking the best player he could find and not kind of thinking about, having to fit in positions. So yeah, I like the draft a lot.
A lot of players I'm familiar with from playing bronze. Dave McNally. We've got Lucas Giolito. We've got the Dink Motho card. Harry Ford at number 2. Although some might say it's a reach, but that's a great card, very versatile card that he got with his number 2 pick. And then that Mark McGuire that I know you love with the big bat and the big eye. That's going to be interesting to see how Mark plays out in this tournament.
Yeah, he doesn't perfectly fit the Parker the era, but you're getting him as your, low iron. So
Yeah.
he doesn't have, it's not like the team's relying on him. The question is there a situation where that kind of is a useful first base backup? And I think that probably is going to turn out to be the case.
How about a value pick for Sporer?
Um, I guess I like where he got Skubal, but I really like Bob Horner. I think that card, I actually like Horner better than some of the cards that he picked earlier, even in terms of what that card gives you.
Right. Yeah. I think, probably before Dink Motho, I would have taken Horner, probably before Giolito Horner, maybe
Yeah.
even. Yeah. So another solid team, high end pitching. A lot of his pitching, starting pitching is diamond or higher. So we'll see who he faces off against. And then there's this guy you might be familiar with. Tell it now, rather than analyze your team, tell us about maybe some of the sudden adjustments you had to make. I find that fascinating that during the draft, you had to adjust quickly in a couple situations.
Yeah. So first off, what I had done was I had put a board together before the draft. Kind of thinking about where are the cards that have a big edge, right? Um, and I ended up with let me see, 35 cards that I thought were just a big edge over the next best thing you could get at that position. But that includes some irons. So for example, there were 2 shortstops on the list. A-Rod and Ozzie Smith, I thought were a lot better than kind of any other shortstops you could get in that tier. Or like, one that only had one spot was Willie McCovey. He was a much better first baseman than anything you could get in low diamond, but everywhere else, so for example, if you're looking at the perfects, Dan Browthers is good, but Hank Greenberg's also good. And maybe the gap between Browthers and Greenberg isn't enough that you race to take the first of the two. You'd rather take the second of the two. Right? Or like all the high diamond pitchers, because there's so many high diamond pitchers that are close to equally good, I didn't want to race for any of them. So I started with that, and then I was kind of looking at, can I get as many of those as possible? And I actually got 13 of the 35 I wanted, which I was really happy with in an 8-team draft. Not all of them are equally useful. Like one of them is Hugh Nickel, for a low iron. Even if I got the very best possible low iron, he's probably going to play a handful of games for me. But that was kind of the way I was originally thinking about it. The other thing I realized is that because a lot of the high diamond and low diamond pitchers were sort of similar, what I thought I wanted to do was to sort of leave those spots for the end and just take the last from those groups, and that's where my pitching would come from. And then what happened was first I ended up kind of with Spencer Steer. Because I suddenly saw this run on players I wanted, and I realized, actually it's really tough to find good second basemen. So I had only 3 second basemen that really had a big edge over the competition. 2 of them, and CJ Abrams and Alberto Mondesi, were already gone. So then I decided I should take Steer. But then it meant I was sort of adjusting, or similarly for that 5th pick, Astor took what I really wanted. And I ended up deciding, well, maybe Griffey's just kind of by far the best center fielder left. There isn't another center fielder that really helps. I probably want to play Aaron in a corner. I guess I should take Griffey, even if it means I'm not getting another, like that Dan Herron is what I would have done. Because I thought Herron was going to be a lot better, and I wanted at least one of Wells and Herron, and Astor got both of them instead.
Yeah, I like the Suarez. Of course, Suarez meta in bronze. You were able to get him. A couple controversial pitchers that some models like, some don't, with the Timlin, with the Cliff Lee. And then Jeff Francoeur, the card we tease you about quite a bit. You ended up taking him. What's your reasoning for that with that low eye?
So what I really wanted, what I thought I was going to end up doing, once I lost sort of Wells as kind of the one kind of high silver I really thought was a big edge. I kind of had a group of like Steve Carlton, Lamar Hoyt, Wilmer Flores, and Addie Joss as kind of all being kind of in that next tier. And I realized I just needed one of them. And then I got stuck because they all just went, I didn't think anyone else was that interested in Addie Joss. But unfortunately, it turned out there was one other person interested in it. Kidneys took Addie Joss. And so I ended up with Tom Williams, who I just don't think is very good. But I needed some starter in that slot. And there wasn't an obvious second one to take, so I sort of got a bit stuck is what happened. That was probably the biggest thing.
So let me ask you a couple questions here, because obviously a lot of players didn't get picked. Maybe a couple surprises for me anyway is the Joey Votto. I don't think was eligible, right? The new Joey Votto.
New Joey Votto wasn't. The 84 overall gold Votto was eligible and was picked. Forget where, but somewhere reasonably.
Sporer, yeah. Sporer got him in the 7th round. How about the new the tournament Jake Arrieta? Was he available, and why wasn't he taken?
He was. I think so. If you just look at the starting pitchers that people took, I think this was one where kind of for the starters, imperfect. Gooden and Kershaw were a bit above the others, and it seems like everyone else just decided that the gap between the top starting pitchers and the others was big enough that it wasn't worth taking anyone behind the top 2 with a perfect. It was better to take hitters or two-way players. My guess is that Arrieta or DeGrom would have been the next cards off the board if people had kept taking starters.
Yeah, and Astor did take DeGrom. I can't remember. Let's see when he did take him.
That's right. He took him at the very end, right?
Yeah, 26. Yeah, last pick with DeGrom. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, there you guys go. I'm going to give you the link for this. I'll also put it out tomorrow on my regular show. And feel free to enter. 1 entry per human. 10 packs are on the line. You have seen the breakdown of the different teams that are in this tournament that fires off tomorrow. And we'll leave it up for about 24 hours. Well, less than that, because the tournament fires in less than 24 hours. Any closing comment about the tournament itself? I know this is something you were kind of looking forward to putting together. You did a mock one on your stream last week. Any closing comments about the tournament before we go to the cap?
Mainly just, really a thank you to everyone, both for participating in the draft, but then also on the dev end for actually doing the things to kind of make it happen, and to you and to Sweegie for not only casting it, but managing to kind of keep the whole thing like actually working, because I don't know how clear this is to the people that are watching a stream like this, but there's a lot that goes into actually making this work seamlessly, and you only tend to notice it when it goes wrong.
Yeah, true. Very true. Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to get on to the cap tournament here. We do have a quick break we're going to take, Charles. So we'll be back in 2 minutes' time and enter that Sporer Cap tournament. Be back in 2 minutes.
All right.
All right, welcome back. And before we get to the cap tournament, a couple things to go through first. Again, if you haven't entered the Laptop Hound lower level leisure lounge daily tournament, you are missing out on a fierce competition for first overall. At the end of the month, we've got some packs to give out for the top finisher in this tournament, which right now is the Dodgers with 11 points, 4 points for first place, 3 for second, 2 for third, and 1 for fourth. So here you see our top 10 leaderboard right there with Isadolfo in fourth, with D. Dempsey in third. We've got Rojo, 2 weeks in a row, perfect team champion in fifth. And Don't Cut the D Block Dragon there in 10th place. I've got a second and I've got a fourth place. Warbot has won a first place finish down here somewhere. Where are we? Right there with
and then we keep getting knocked out early since then. So
yeah, that's same with me. I'm losing a lot of 7 games first round series. Also, one of the combatants, Kidney, who was in the chat a little bit earlier, again, a few comments that maybe Charles wants to address. I think outside of lacking in 2 high diamonds, an accident in 1 round, and his catcher, he thinks it's a strong draft. So he's admitting that he probably made a mistake with a few of those high diamonds and his catcher. If Cruz was Bell, it was better, but I wanted right field flex.
Yeah.
Charles is being surprised all draft that good players took cards, good cards, gave you a good laugh. Yeah. 8 good managers. Yeah.
Yeah. I actually didn't hear his comments because I had 2 Tom Seavers plugging my ears.
Oh, Oh, all right. Yeah, no, he was in there. I'm sure the trash talk will be continuing amongst you guys tomorrow as the tournament fires off.
I should find a clip of that actually.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure you can find some of those. I just, again, just I couldn't believe I didn't notice the prank he pulled on me until much later in the video.
That was well done. Yeah.
That was well done, kidneys. Hats off to you. Okay, let's go on because I know DishNet is going to be streaming in about a half hour's time or less, and I want to raid over to him. We've got the Feast of Seven Spores pop-up. Still about 60
Yeah,
opening.
all three of these pop-ups are now stuck because they, I guess, are all like more than half filled and none is filled. So I'm not quite sure how that's going to get untangled.
It might have to carry into a New Year's kind of pop up by the time it gets filled, but about 70 left, 70 openings. It will fire off once it's full. Hopefully, again, yeah, we can't cut it because it's just, past that halfway mark. And it's going to tie up one of your tournament entry fee slots. It won't tie up your other slots. It'll tie up the entry fee slot. Okay, so these are the rules. There are no restrictions, no roster limits, other than it has a salary cap, and the card value may not exceed 1481, which means about a 56 cap average. Unused roster spots, take that 40. A 40 does not cost you anything on the cap. And we're playing in the 1958 Tiger Stadium, which is pretty neutral BABIP wise, more aggressive with the home runs. And I think it's modern era. Yeah, modern era strategy. Yeah.
Try to
So
pull it up.
Charles,
Modern era?
I am by no means a cap expert. One reason I brought you on today was please help. What route do you go? I'm choosing, this is the team I play all my iron tournaments in because I'm assuming a lot of the roster is going to be iron, lower level cards. So that's why I chose this one here. Where do you start? What do you do?
Okay, well, I think the first thing we want to do is we kind of want to count how many players we're going to get on the roster. So let's imagine that, we're going to get to put some number of just perfects on the roster, right? How many do we get? Right? So it's going to cost you 1,040 points if you just have irons. You've got another, that means 441 points that you can use, right?
Okay.
So that means if you were to use perfects, 7 perfects would cost you 420. So you can have, one way to think about this is you can have essentially, any 7 players you like. Is kind of one way that you might want to construct this, because often the top perfects are just going to be a lot better than everyone else. So you're probably going to run, roughly either 7 perfects and kind of fill in, or maybe 6 perfects, and you're going to split one up to get just a little bit more value.
Okay.
So if you have every card in the game, you're kind of building it by asking which are the 7 perfects that give you the most value over irons.
Now, is this one where you want two-way players, ideally?
So in general, if you're going to build with a two-way player, actually, did I ever give you that kind of score sheet we gave people? If not, maybe this is a good thing to put in the chat.
All right.
Did I show
no, you
you
didn't get posted in the private chat there.
Sure. So this is actually just, because a lot of the questions we get are sort of, is my roster good? Right? And so with that in mind, let me give the shortened URL. Well, I think I've got a shortened URL version of this too somewhere that I was trying to find. Let me see if I can find give you the short link version. Here it is. So we often get asked, is my roster any good?
The trash talking. Love it. Love it. These guys are fierce competitors. That's for sure. They love to go after each other in good fun. But yeah, believe me, whoever wins this tournament is going to have a glow about them and an air about them for the next few months.
Yes.
Okay.
So here, this is one you can actually give to everyone. It's kind of just a good checklist for, did you build a roster that makes sense? And one of the questions on here is, if you have a two-way player, is he both a better pitcher than your worst pitcher and a better hitter than your worst hitter? Because if he's not going to be both, it's not worth running a two-way player, right?
Right.
So in this case, because you're probably going to be starting some low iron pitchers and some low iron hitters, I think two ways are going to make a lot of sense, because it's going to be pretty easy for them to be better than, kind of what you're replacing them with.
Right. Right. All right. So I just posted that. Oops. I don't know if that worked out, but let's see if I can post that. And Charles, because we're short on time, we'll maybe we'll do that like on a Tuesday show or something like that. Where
Yeah, it's a good one to go through.
a good one to go through.
Yeah, because it's worth talking about, because some of the things here need a little bit of discussion. Like when I say, every player on your roster has a purpose. Well, okay, what exactly do we mean by that, right?
Yeah.
But these are kind of the things you should be thinking about. All right, so I think in this case,
go through.
So this is an account that has a little bit more limited player pool, right?
Right.
So with that in mind, the question you're going to be asking is going to be a little bit different from, I have every card in the game, who are the 7 best? You're going to be asking, who are your really good high value perfects, and let's get them on the roster.
Okay.
Right?
So I do have a few perfects, including some, immortals. Again, these are all players that played with Dave Stieb in an all-star game on his team. So I do have some good ones there. And I do have 300,000 points. I'm not opposed to picking up a player or two on the card shop if the value is good, because when we look at the prizes here, if you finish in the top 16, top 8, you kind of make your money back if you spend a little bit of money on the card shop.
Yeah,
but of course,
I think it's, the problem is, even like an all perfect pack, if you kind of ask what that's worth, it's not worth that much over 300,000 points. So I don't think you want to spend for a big player for this. We can talk about some of the players that we consider. You would think about some of the two-way players. It's a good place to run a lot of two-way players, as we were discussing. The cards that might be worth buying would be if there's one of the relatively cheap low irons that just gives you a big edge over the backup.
and I might have some of those, because this is my iron tournament team, so I might have some of them. Okay, let's start with the perfects here. Again, you said I could get 7 perfects, but do you see on my list here 7 worthy of using that cap money on? I'm thinking George Brett.
Yeah, so I think just start with, who do you think are your really good players? Let's put them on the roster. The gap between the best perfects and kind of even the bad perfects is so big that they'll all be pretty good. It's modern era. The ballpark's a minor effect. Let's start just by putting, who are the players that you think are really meta cards? Let's get some of them on the roster, right?
Okay. So I
and
would
you
say
don't have
George.
any two-way perfects here. So there aren't any two ways that we're kind of thinking about.
No. I would think Robin Yount, shortstop Robin Yount Immortal, probably is worth it then.
Yeah, if you have A-Rod, you're running A-Rod instead.
Yeah.
If you don't have A-Rod, then this is still, unless you have unless you have a card like the Bronze Ozzy, maybe he's so efficient that you'd rather do that if you have him.
Yeah. No, I don't. Not on this team. No.
I think you're going to want to invest at least something in pitching, even if it's not two-way. You don't have a ton of the high-end pitchers, but probably you're still going to want, one or two. You're going to want to spend something on pitching in this tournament, or else you're going to get clobbered by, some of the good bats.
Is Monty Ward one worth it?
Monty Ward would definitely work well in this tournament. He's a strong two-way. Bullet Joe Rogan would work well in this tournament and is a good two-way. You can run a bunch of these. You could run Donaldson. You could run Carruthers. The problem is, if you spend a bunch on Monty Ward just to run the one tournament, you're probably not getting good value back.
Right. But in a case like Carruthers, you said he would be a good investment. at worst, I can always get at least 20,000 back for him after the tournament.
Yeah. Get 20,000 back, but I think I wouldn't. The point is, I wouldn't buy a card like Carruthers just to run this tournament.
Okay.
If you're planning on running a lot of caps like this, I'd think about getting one or two good two-way cards. But the other thing to consider, I mean, the honest answer here is that because it's an open tournament, this is a really hard one to compete in missing cards, because the people that are going to be running high-end cards are going to be running the really expensive ones.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
the best two-way card you're going to be up against is an Otani, for example. You know,
So
the best bats you're going to be up against are going to be these million-point bats that that just came out.
with that in mind, then, knowing that there's guys going to be playing these top end cards, is it better to go after the value golds and silvers and stack more of those players on your team? Or is that not going to make much of a difference?
Just don't think it helps that much. So here's the problem. Let's say that you took George Brett and I don't know, let's pick another position.
Second base.
Okay. So let's
Jackie
say
Robinson.
you took, okay. So, well, no, I was gonna, let's say you took George Brett and your favorite 40 overall second baseman.
Okay.
Okay. And you replace them with 270 overall a 70 overall second baseman and a 70 overall third baseman. The problem is that even though Brett, maybe is not quite as valuable as, say A-Rod, it still is the case, or like I'd rather have Marcus Semien than Brett, for example, right now, I think. But it still is the case that the gap between Brett and your best 70 overall is a lot bigger than the gap between your best 70 and your best 40. And so it's still better to run Brett is the problem. It's just, the best you can do is going to be to run Brett, but like the best you can do is going to be to run, a card like Steve as a starter, because you really need kind of the starter. But there are going to be people that are running more, there are going to be people that are running Doc Gooden instead in that slot.
Right. But there's some low diamond pitchers that are better than Steve. There's some maybe gold pitchers better than the perfect Steve at this point that I save points on, right?
Yeah, but the point is you still want to run the best of, what I'm trying to say is you want to be running the best of what you have.
Right.
Is still the way I'd think about it.
Okay,
Mr. Audit kind of raises one other point, which is what you could do is you could take cards that have big splits and just hope to get lucky. Run a card like Cal Daniels, who's 73 and has a really, really good bat against righties. But if he ever faces a lefty, you actually are running your iron. And if it turns out you happen to get lucky and only face righties over the course of the tournament, Cal Daniels is going to be really good value. But the problem is it's a 256 team tournament. So to go deep in the tournament, you're going to have to win, 5 or 6 rounds. And there's basically, you'd have to really hope that you never face a team with some lefties. But maybe you could try it. So we could try building a version of that roster. You know what? Let's try building a version of that roster and see what happens.
Okay.
It's at least a fun roster to build, right? So most of the two ways, as Mr. Audit points out, are righties. And they're also right-handed hitters also. So let's maybe just put in our favorite cards that do well against righties and see what happens. We get to experiment a little bit because we're underdogs, right? We have a weaker card pool than some of the people that have everything that we're up against. So yeah, let's look at some of that. So in that case, if you look at your starters, I mean, actually that Saberhagen is pretty darn good against righties. So let's run him, right? Brett's great against righties.
Put the pitchers back up. Okay, so let's focus maybe on the pitchers first. So you said the Brett Saberhagen. We'll throw him in there.
Yeah, like if you look at Saberhagen, he's great against righties. So, he's not so good against lefties, but let's just try to beat some righties, you know?
Lee Smith, I probably want then, right, for a 56. He's
Sure, we
pretty
can,
good.
yeah, we can do that. I mean, normally I don't like spending 16 on an iron, so let's,
Yeah.
but when we start filling out the end, let's do that. Let's think about who the big cards are going to be. Do we have any other pitchers that you're looking at and just saying, I think I'm going to be good against righties? I mean, I guess you can't really run a Dave Steve team without running Dave Steve, right?
Yeah. Yeah. We got to put him in.
And Clemens is fine against righties. Okay, so maybe we run like Steve, Saberhagen, Clemens, and we're going to try to find 2 cheap ones, something like
Okay.
that.
All right. Let's go to our batters.
All right, and do you have any batters that you really like for clobbering righties? We can probably add, 1 or 2 more perfects if we wanted to.
Fred Lynn.
So yeah, so Fred Lynn is an example of a card that's not very good against, well, basically unplayable against lefties. He's still behind the top meta cards against righties. I mean, if you had a card like Evan Carter from the PT Elite, I'd much rather run that.
Yeah.
But but I think you take what you can get, right?
Yeah. Let's
So
just
Evan
check the
Carter,
mission.
Evan Carter would be cheaper to finish the mission. Actually, would be the way to do it.
Yeah. Where is he here? Carter. There he is there.
I don't know how close you are to the mission.
Yeah, it's 20. That's what I need. So I'm still quite a bit. I'm still probably 70,000.
How many more? You need 14 of those.
Yeah, 14.
So do you need all or all but one?
This one here, you need 25 of 39.
You have 25 of 39. You 30. Okay, you need all. Okay, so you actually need 2 perfects for that. So that's not an easy mission to finish.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, then we just run. You always do the best with what you can. I think that's all right. So we've got 6 perfects on our roster. Is that what we've got?
We do.
So good. Then let's just keep going. Let's see if we can find a couple of cheap pitchers that you're willing to run against righties. So let's look for a couple more starters. Again, I would have liked 2-way players. We don't got them. So we're, you do the best with what you've got, right? That's just always the way it works.
Do we want you Babbitt, right? Babbitt versus righties?
Or even just overall like a, good pitcher. So someone that's kind of going to outperform expectations a bit. Actually, one that could be interesting. Do you have the 71 overall Brandon McCarthy? I don't love that card in general, but he does okay against righties.
Brandon McCarthy. Well, I do now.
I'm just looking for kind of a card that normally I wouldn't have thought of, but if we're just kind of completely selling out and saying like, all right, you know what? Either we're hitting righties or or we lose. So we're just going to face these righties. Who else do we got? Let's see. Are there any other so you definitely want some kind of right-handed starter.
What about Tommy John? No, he's a lefty.
Let's see. Maybe the bronze Sonny Gray would do okay against righties. Let me see. We can keep going. Let's look for an iron. We'll see if there's an iron that'll fit maybe. Here's a really good one. The 44 overall Anthony Young. That's kind of your good, cheap, facing righties sort of option, right?
If I still have Anthony Young, I may not have him.
Do you not have him? Okay. He was the LE. Okay, how about the 48 overall Gil Aradia? Or we could go to 54 and go to Floyd Yeomans, who's 54. How about that? He's a very much, only wants to face righties option.
Yeah, pretty much. I'm pretty sure I have him. So Floyd, there he is.
And then we're going even more Montreal heavy. So
Okay.
So how about that? We'll do something like that for the rotation. Yeah. So something like that. And now when we still have a few points for some bronzes, right? And the other thing you can do if you want to save points is we can always decide to run the bronze steed and spend on a hitter or something. But let's try to do this. How many points do you have? You have another 36 points.
Yes.
Then now let's just put in some excellent bronzes. And I think the best bronze, even Kidneys is going to agree with me on this, that the best bronze versus righties right now is this Adalberto Mondesi that he made the first overall pick for a reason, right?
What number is he?
So he is going to cost you some points. He's 57 overall, but he's just really, really good. So could run him at second or short. Sorry, as a hitter, I meant. Sorry.
Oh, hitter, right.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's second base for sure. Brett at third.
Yeah, we'll see. All right. And then now we have only a few points. So we're going to try to fill in the gaps as best we can, right?
Yep.
So maybe let's see how many really good low irons we've got that we like, and then we'll kind of go from there. So, you've been running a lot of irons. So I think you just want to start by filling in. Let's just fill in your favorite really cheap players. 40s
What do you
where we
consider
can.
cheap?
Well, you have about 15 points to spread. You have 19 points to spread among the other 15 or so people on your roster. So
Okay. So Matt
40
Williams.
40 everywhere you can get away with it, but only pick the good ones because we are going to be willing to spend, a couple points where it's valuable. So for example, catchers.
Molina.
Molina and Thole are probably, two decent enough 40s. So that's kind of a solid option. Do you have both Molina and Thole?
I got Molina. Foley should be pretty cheap.
Hopefully all these irons are pretty affordable.
How do you spell his last name?
TH.
Oh, Toley. There we go. All right. Got a couple catchers.
All right. So we didn't have to spend on catchers. That's good. We even got a lefty hitting catcher in there. So first base, well, we could always run either McGuire or Bavacqua if you want to spend a couple of points. Probably the best 40 at first base would probably be like the live Dermis Garcia, maybe.
Okay.
But we have 19 points to spend. So anywhere that you kind of are looking at it and saying, I've got a real upgrade for a couple points,
I think McGuire, we're going to put McGuire in as a 44.
Sure. Oh, yeah. He's got
or
some pop.
Bavacqua. Who do you like better, McGuire or Bavacqua? Or both?
Well, if the more that there are lefties, so if you look at Bavacqua, the more that there are lefties, the more you're going to get interested. So if we're going to try to bet on nothing but righties, then I guess that's where we would more go with McGuire, I guess. Yeah.
Okay, let's go with McGuire. Okay, so we got McGuire, second base.
Second base. So one option is Stubby Clapp. Now, again, you're really selling out against righties because he only hits righties, but he is free. Probably want him on the roster for free, at least either way. Couple other options to think about. Actually, wait a minute. Stubby Clapp's fine as a backup because you're already running Alberto Mondesi is the starter. So there's no reason to spend on the backup.
Right.
Similarly, at short, you're already spending on Yount. Do you have Lenny Randall, actually? Because he's a good multi-position backup.
I do not have Lenny. I did not get him.
Okay, then let's look at, so Stubby Clapp will back up second and third for you. Yeah, a lot of the good shortstop options you're spending 1.4. I think the shortstop, maybe Drew Maggi is the live Drew Maggi is kind of the 0 point shortstop option. If you're willing to spend a couple points, then you could go to Rabbit Nil, who backs up a few positions. For 3 points, you get Kid Elberfeld, who is a really solid backup at short. For 1 point, you get Buddy Biancalana, who's also pretty solid and will play a few positions for you. So maybe it is worth putting a point or two into that.
Okay. I don't think I have Buddy. What's Buddy going for? Let's put in. He's
All these
5'9".
irons should be pretty affordable, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to need him eventually, so let's go Buddy Biancalana and take out Drew Maggi.
Sure.
Okay, so we've got 14 left to go.
Yep. All right, and then a few outfielders.
Jose Canseco.
So first off, I think it's really, so these are going to be your starters. So I really would spend the 3 points on Hugh Nickel. You can run him in center or right, but I think he's just so good that he's worth the 3 points.
Okay, he is in.
In center, John Dobbs for free is probably the best center field option. Billy Lush, for 3 points is kind of going to give you, something solid in the outfield. Yeah.
I've got to go Canseco because he's free, right?
Sure. Yeah, and the only thing is Canseco is not, he only backs up the one position. That's the problem.
Yeah.
So it's tough to fit him in because I don't think he hits well enough to DH.
Or Joel Youngblood.
Yeah, if you're willing to spend a couple points, if you're going to spend points in left, the options I might look at would be the 44 Ricky Henderson, the 43 Billy Lush, 42 Gibby Brack, 41 Dave Collins, maybe. I mean, Lush, just gives you iron defense and nothing else, but that's what low irons are kind of going to give you.
Right.
Ricky, yeah.
We'll go with Lush. Okay, Lush is in. So activate him.
All right.
So now we are at
how many do we have on the depth chart now?
17.
17, and you're going to add 7 more pitchers. So we need 2 more hitters. What positions? Oh, you don't have Thole on yet, so we still need the backup catcher.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, we don't have Thole on yet.
Was it live or not live?
No, he's a historical. Let me see what he's a 40 overall unsung heroes. If you don't have Thole, probably Fatty Briotti or Chris Cannizzaro would be the next best option.
All right, he is on.
All right, and do we need an outfielder or an infielder? What do we need for the rest of the depth chart? We need
Probably
looks like
outfield.
one more outfielder.
Yeah.
All right, then let's add one more outfielder. Let's see. I end up with Luke Williams on a lot of rosters because he just plays everything. The other thing you could do, so right now, if you were to auto set lineups, just to get an idea of who we've got, who's our DH?
Stubby Clapp and Buddy Biancalana.
So if you want to add a DH, we
But
could
Matt
add,
Williams.
yeah, so we could add like Greg Luzinski or Randy Johnson or we could spend 4 points on Rusty Kuntz just in case kind of it works out the other way.
Ooh, yeah, I like Rusty. Rusty. Bo Jackson. Rusty Kuntz.
But if we think there are going to be no lefties in this, I'm not sure I'd spend on Kuntz. You know, that's the bet you're making. You know, if we're kind of betting that we're not going to, if we're kind of betting that we're not going to face any lefties.
All right. Well, then who's the best bet not facing lefties?
Probably Greg Luzinski if you have the LE. If not, the 40 overall Randy Johnson, who, if you look at that card, he very, very much does not want to face a lefty. But you know, he's good against righties.
I do have the Randy Johnson, so let's put Randy in.
Yep. If you, like I said, if you look at the card, it's about as splitty of a card as you can get. I could not imagine making a splittier one.
Is that the one that has like 1 in outfield or something?
Yeah, no, it's the one that has like 1 hitting ratings versus lefties, but he hits righties.
Oh.
So, you know, if all you got to do is hit righties, you're doing fine.
Yeah.
Going to be a really imbalanced team, and we're just going to do what we can, right?
Lots of ones on that one. Okay.
You said you think you're only facing righties, and if you're only facing righties, it's, you know, but he doesn't have those ones.
Okay, so they do have him as DH. They got Buddy Biancalana as DH against the lefties. So that means the rest for pitchers. We got.
So let's throw in some 40s.
All right, who do you like for 40 pitchers?
All right. So you have actually 8 points left, so we have a little bit of room as well. Yeah. All right.
CJ?
Yeah, I think CJ is by far going to be your best 40.
Plunk,
and
Grove.
Marino Pieretti probably also. And then it starts to get tough. The live Brian Hoeing, maybe.
You mean we're not going to put Orion? Orion's
what?
not a viable option?
I think you can do better, but you know, it's your team. I'm going to leave that one to you. Roberto Hernandez is kind of fun in a spectacular sort of way. And then you do have room to add a couple more arms that are really good against righties. So let me suggest a couple arms that I think are worth spending those 8 points on, if that's what we've got. Because you've got what? 4 arms and
4 arms, 8 points.
All right. Well, I think we finally found a way to run him. If you want an iron pitcher that can face righties and maybe isn't so good versus lefties, but I swear he can face righties, for 44 points, we do have Dick Pole.
Dick Pole.
And I have never run Dick Pole in a tournament. So this would be my first chance to you know.
All right, I can say
I'm having trouble figuring out how to finish that sentence in a way that won't be clippable, but
yeah, you know. Exactly. We'll just say
but if you look at Dick Pole, he's better against righties by quite a bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, but he is, if we're kind of selling out for facing righties, there you go.
Okay, 3 players left and 4 points.
Oh, yeah, well, thank you to Popstar Goria. Sorry, I had just noticed that. And
Here's what our
another good,
pitching looks like so far.
another good 4-point option could be Yusmeiro Petit. That could be the other 4. Or we could split it up into a couple options. I think what's going to end up happening is we're going to get clobbered because lefties are going to exist. But
Yeah.
that always could happen. I think we're at least giving ourselves a shot at finding a condition where we get some good matchups, right? So I like Yusmeiro Petit, I think, maybe for the other 4.
He's a 44.
Yep.
Not Cal Eldred? No, not good enough.
I think Petit's, if you look at Petit, he's going to be pretty good.
And for some reason, I don't have him. So
I think he's a newer card.
Oh, he
He's
is
a pretty good 44. Yeah, you can show people the card if you want, but he's a pretty good.
Oh yeah. Look at that picture, Babbitt. Yeah. I see what
He's
you're.
not so good with the other stuff, but for low iron, you're not going to get people that are good at everything.
He's a
Right?
softball pitcher. He lobs it in there.
Yep. But with just enough spin that. Yep. And then you
His
need 2 more 40s. Yep.
Best pitch is a fastball, ironically.
Yep.
All right, so we got 2 more to go and both 40s.
And no points. So let's just pick your favorite 2 40s, and then we'll call it done. Let's see, a few names that Colin Snyder, Roberto Hernandez, maybe Brian Hoeing. These are all going to get lit up, right? You're just picking the least bad. They just get lit up in different ways.
Yeah. Did you say Francisco Perez?
No, I was saying Colin Snyder, maybe Emerson Hancock, Roberto Hernandez. The 40s actually, there's a fair bit of variation. Like there are bad ones, and then there are really, really bad ones also.
Mr. Hernandez, come on down.
Roberto Hernandez is a weirdly shaped card also, but we're trying it. So
oh yeah, he's the opposite of that last guy we brought in.
Yeah. If you staple them together in the right way, they're an excellent pitcher.
Yeah. We can meld them together. It's a top end pitcher. Okay, give me one more. One more.
Who do we not have? You don't have Nitkowski, maybe?
Here's what I got. You ready? Nitkowski, Hernandez, Owing, Petit, and Dick Pole.
Do you have Pierretti?
Yeah.
If you're ready, hold on. Nitkowski, Pole. Hatch, Thomas Hatch, live Thomas Hatch.
Hash? Like hash?
Hatch.
Oh, Hatch. Okay. Thomas Hatch, I do own that one. Okay.
All right.
I don't want to be buying a live 40.
Actually, at this point, if you're buying lives, it's fine because it's probably helping with the PT Elite missions, right?
Yeah, well, maybe if those 40s help. I guess maybe some of them do. Mr. Hatch.
I guess that's the thing to rip all the packs for, right? Is to finish all the lives off.
There we go. Thomas Hatch.
All right. So I think we made it, as we were discussing, this is the best kind of roster we can put together from our card pool. You know, you will eventually be up against, you know, the teams that kind of have a roster like this, but the really big cards. But what is
So
that, you know?
what do you do
Yeah.
in a cap situation now when you've got all these 40 relievers? How do you manage their bullpen roles? Because they're all bad, but are some a little bit better? Like can he go a little more use often as a middle
Yeah.
reliever?
So I'd say, well, I think Yusmeira Petit and Dick Pole are the two we've spent points on. So I want them doing most of the pitching if possible, at least in kind of the higher leverage situations, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Are you
and the other thing
entertaining?
is, in the sliders, this is also in general kind of important for a cap tournament, that in the sliders, you can start with whatever sliders you would normally use for a tournament, but you want to make sure you then adjust them, leave the starting pitcher in as long as possible because our bullpen is awful.
Yeah.
So start from your normal sliders, but then adjust at least, you know, the rest of it, you can just use whatever your normal set of sliders would be. So I
In a
would
cap,
import whatever you're usually using.
does the
But
1860 come into play in a cap tournament at all? Is that something you're going to utilize?
uh, the reason you would run that is if you think that your relievers are basically about as good as your starters.
Okay, they're not.
So here, I would not think about it, but I think you could try to come up with a plan for a cap tournament where you just entirely punt pitching. You know, oh, you're going to give me 7 players. You know what? I'm just going to run 7 hitters. I'm going to run my 40 overall pitchers. I know that we're going to get some runs scored against us, but, you know, we're going to try to outslug you. And if you did that, you might run the like 1860 thing because you're at least trying to rotate through your bullpen and keep them fresh. But here, I mean, the question I'll ask you is, you know, imagine it's the 8th inning and you're clinging to like a 3-1 lead. Would you rather send a tired Dave Stieb out there, or would you rather have one of your 40 overall guys try to get 2 innings?
Yeah, no. Well, pick any other pitcher but Dave Stieb because he tends to give up a lot of hits in the ninth inning. So
That's why I said 8th.
yeah, eighth inning. Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
Dave's still in the game. Yeah.
Um,
Depth wise, when you have all these 40 players as hitters, is there any kind of magic you're trying to do with the depth
I
chart
don't think
hitting
there's a lot
wise?
of magic. So there's one thing I would consider here, which normally would be stupid, but I'd at least consider a little bit. Um, you know, you've invested a lot of points in Fred Lynn. If you run Fred Lynn in center, the advantage is he's a really good center fielder. The disadvantage is he's going to get tired relatively quickly. If you put him in left, he's a really good left fielder, but a really good center fielder is, you know, more important defensively than a really good left fielder. But the advantage is that Lynn is going to get to play a lot more of your games before he needs to rest. So I might run like Lynn in left and then Lesher Dobbs in center just to, you know, yeah.
Lynn
I,
and
I
left.
might, I might, I might do that, you know, even though Lynn is a better center fielder,
Right.
just because you really got Lynn for his bat. And so
Yeah.
you just want him in there.
And Nichols, the
Um,
right veteran right field, I guess. Yeah.
sure, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
All right, Charles.
and we'll do
Well,
the best we can, and
yeah.
hope that you face a lot of righties and get a good matchup.
Yeah, well, and I may pick up a player between now and the time it fires off. I may open up a few more packs. Let's just see. Maybe I get lucky and I get a Willie Mays. Let's see. There's no
If
Willie
you
Mays
do,
there.
you should definitely play him.
Let's see. No one there I want to add. Let's open a couple more here. And not looking pretty hopeful. Nope.
Although
Let's
I
go
like
3
that
more.
Cubs logo that has sort of a bite taken out of it.
Uh, nah, not much there. Now we'll go one more pack. Come on, Willie Mays. No, faceless. AJ Smith Sauger. Well, Charles, thanks so much for popping in today on this Christmas Day. Popstongoria, I noticed the 10 gifting of subs. Merry Christmas to the community. For those of you that received the gift subs there from Popstongoria, thank you so much. What a kind heart, kind gentleman. And Charles, I don't know what your timeline is like tomorrow because you got this big tournament. So I hear. If you are going to be available to go over the treasure trove bounty, just let me know in DM. Otherwise,
I'll see. I do have to, prepare to take on kidneys.
Well,
all right, I got to ask you guys one last question, then we should raid into Dishnet. I think we got to nail you down and get you to make a prediction. What's your prediction?
Okay. My prediction is, let me bring up the tournament schedule or the screen here.
Yeah, because we don't know who the matchups are, because that may matter a lot. Some of our teams match up, just like the thing we were just making. Some of our teams match up better one way than others.
Okay, here's what I'm predicting. Simply because I can't alienate my two Hawk co-hosts. An Isadolfo Warbot final. May the best team win. Are you like
no, I don't want the best team to win. I want my team to win.
All right. And Underdog, your kidneys, my first Hawk co-host. Got to throw him in there.
And if you could pick a first round matchup, which is the first round matchup you want?
You know what? I would go with probably the guy that's more of a rookie at this. So if I could have a first round matchup, I'd want to go up against Sporer, just because he's probably got the least experience in Perfect Team compared to the other 7 of you. That's the only reason. Not because it's a bad team or anything, just because I'm not experienced at this, and he's probably the least experienced, so I'd have the best chance, I think. That's right.
All right, sounds good. All right. Thanks a lot, and we'll see some of you all tomorrow, right?
All right. Yes, absolutely. Okay, let's raid over to Dishnet here and see what he's got going on his PAX only team. Thank you guys again for tuning in. Thanks, Popstongoria. Space, good to see you raiding over. We are going to continue and pay that raid ahead and go over to Dishnet. Again, if you do want to enter the contest for the giveaway, we've got 4 responses in. I'm sure we'll have a lot more responses in tomorrow. Here it is one more time before we raid over. Pick the team that you think is going to win this invitational. First invitational amongst the 8 community members, and fill that form out before it fires off tomorrow. Again, we don't know who the matchups are, so you simply have to guess who you think is going to take it. Okay, we're going to raid over to Dishnet. Thank you, guys. I'm back on tomorrow at usual time. After Sporer's Treasure Trove, we'll be back. And then I look forward to see who takes this first tournament. Will it be Kidney / Snailman, McNoosh, Isadolfo, Warbot, Sporer, the Dallas Skyline Sluggers, Aster 31, or Hamlet? One of them will emerge victorious. Okay. See you next episode. Let's head over to Dish. Here for a good time, not a long time. So have a good time. The sun can't shine every day. See you next time.